Welcome to this explainer. Okay, we're going to shatter a really deeply ingrained historical image today. You know the story, right? The highly romanticized myth of the lady with the lamp. Well, get ready because we are about to reveal the fierce operational genius of the real Florence Nightingale. We're talking numbers, logistics, and visual proof that literally changed the world.
So, popular history paints her as this gentle, almost angelic figure, just softly walking down dark hospital corridors to comfort the sick. But the reality? It's so much more intense than that. She was actually a sharp-witted statistician, a hardcore military reformer, and a brilliant operational manager. She didn't just soothe soldiers, she used hard data to completely overhaul our global healthcare infrastructure. Act 1. The High Society Rebel. To really appreciate how aggressively she rejected the predictable script handed to her, we have to look at where she started. Florence was born in 1820 into an incredibly wealthy British aristocratic family. The expectation for her was super clear: marry a rich guy, host elegant dinner parties, and basically live a life of total leisure. But she rebelled. She claimed a divine calling to reduce human suffering. And you have to remember, back in the 1840s, nursing wasn't some respected medical field. It was viewed as low-status domestic servitude. Hospitals were filthy, chaotic places where the poor just went to die. So you can imagine her parents were absolutely horrified when she rejected high society suitors to travel across Europe and study in those dismal wards.
Act 2. The Nightmare at Scutari. Now, the story shifts dramatically in 1854. The Crimean War has broken out, and Britain is suddenly shocked by media reports of wounded soldiers facing abysmal conditions. So Nightingale leads a team of 38 volunteer nurses to the barrack hospital in Scutari, which is in modern-day Istanbul. And what they found, well, it was staggering. This wasn't just a medical problem. It was a total bureaucratic and biological nightmare. The hospital was literally built directly over a massive leaking cesspool. Wounded men were lying on rotting floors in their own filth, entirely surrounded by vermin. Clean water was strictly rationed, and the food was practically inedible.
Initially, the military doctors there deeply resented her presence. They basically viewed her as an interfering civilian woman. But she didn't waste time arguing about medicine. Instead, she proved her operational genius by focusing entirely on logistics and supply chains. She bypassed the bureaucracy, went out, and bought scrub brushes. Literal scrub brushes. She cleaned the kitchens, completely overhauled the laundry systems, and enforced strict ventilation. She aggressively scrubbed that hospital into functioning.
Act 3. Weaponizing data.
But here's the crazy part. Her greatest battle actually began after the war. When Nightingale returned to England, she was hailed as a national hero. Privately, though, she was deeply haunted. She demanded a royal commission to investigate the massive death tolls, and when she actually crunched the numbers, she realized a terrifying truth. Despite all her grueling efforts with the scrub brushes and laundry, mortality rates at Scutari had actually spiked during her first winter there.
The staggering discovery was identifying the true killers. The data proved that most soldiers were not dying from enemy artillery or battle wounds. No, they were dying from preventable infectious diseases, stuff like typhus, cholera, and dysentery, all spread by the hospital's horrific lack of sanitation. But she knew a harsh truth. Simply presenting pages of raw text and boring numbers to Queen Victoria and the British government wasn't going to force them to actually do anything about it.
And this is exactly where her absolute genius shines. To force change, she pioneered a brand new way to visualize data. She created what we now call the polar area diagram, or the Nightingale Rose diagram. She took dry, boring statistics and turned them into a visual weapon to demand government action.
Let's break down the power of this rose diagram. As you'll see, each wedge of her chart represented a single month of the war. The visual impact here is just undeniable. Look at those massive blue areas representing preventable infectious diseases. They completely, totally eclipse the tiny red areas, which represent deaths from combat wounds, and the black areas for other causes. By making the blue areas so visually overwhelming, she proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that bad sanitation was killing far more men than the enemy was. It's honestly a masterpiece of data communication.
She vastly preferred the cold utility of facts to those romanticized myths people built around her. In fact, she chillingly noted, "To understand God's thoughts, we must study statistics, for these are the measure of His purpose." For her, data wasn't just math, it was the ultimate divine truth.
Act 4. A Global Medical Legacy. Armed with this statistical proof, she began rewriting the rules of healthcare globally.
And amazingly, she achieved most of this while working from her own bed, suffering from a chronic illness she contracted during the war. In 1860, she established the Nightingale Training School at St. Thomas Hospital, effectively professionalizing nursing and turning it into a highly respected, scientifically grounded career. Her influence was so massive, so global, that during the American Civil War, between 1861 and 1865, both the Union and the Confederate governments actually consulted her data on how to properly manage the military field hospitals.
And she didn't stop at nursing, she completely revolutionized hospital engineering itself. Before her, hospitals were basically cramped, chaotic disease traps. After reviewing the data, she introduced the pavilion layout. This design prioritized separate wings with high ceilings and very large windows. The whole goal was to fight infectious diseases by maximizing fresh airflow and ensuring proper patient isolation.
The contrast between the dark ages of medicine and the modern era she ushered in is just incredibly stark. Before Nightingale, people actually thought disease was caused by miasma, bad air or mystical spirits. After her, clinical sanitation, clean water, and ventilation became recognized medical priorities. She took nursing from untrained low-wage laborers to a highly trained professional career path. And perhaps most astonishingly, while military logistics previously ignored hospital recovery rates, her relentless campaigning made medical statistics absolutely foundational to military strategy and urban planning.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. The public fell in love with a myth, the gentle lady softly carrying a lamp. But our modern world owes a staggering debt to the reality, a rebellious, fierce statistician. If modern medicine and military strategy still rely on the data visualization techniques she pioneered right from her sickbed, it kind of makes you wonder, what other romanticized myths throughout history are hiding brilliant operational minds? Keep that in mind next time you see a simple historical caricature. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.